Art?
Oh, that was yesterday. That's old. Another year down the road.
All right.
So one of the things I forgot to ask at the meeting the other night was, did we find housing for Alana?
Yes. She's staying with the newly empty nester Schmidt family. They have plenty of rooms and live in walking distance. She needs, I don't know yet where she's going for Friday night dinner. If you guys want to have her. I mean, not Friday night, the first night.
We can't have anybody in our house because of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We would ordinarily be happy to do that, but in these circumstances, with Mag, it's just not possible.
So the first day lunch, which is Tuesday, she's going to be at the Schmitz, and the first day dinner she's going to be at the Shangs. I mean, the second day dinner, Tuesday dinner. So she'll walk with the Schmitz to Tashlit, and with the Shangs home from Tashlit, and then Joe or Susan will walk her here for Mari.
Okay.
And then for the second day lunch, Wednesday lunch, she's going to come to our house for lunch.
Okay.
And we're also having Jackie, who is also going to be alone. So my grandparents will be here for Rosh Hashanah. Then for Yom Kippur, we're going to host Alana at our house because it makes more sense because she'll be exactly on my schedule in terms of the pre-meal and the post-meal and whatever, and like getting here and back and it's closer. And also like, she'll just be able to go take a nap in the afternoon. So that's good.
Yeah.
Hi, Reed.
We've gone back in isolation.
Got it.
It was nice while it lasted.
Yeah. Well, I think we all knew that this was like a reprieve this summer.
Yeah.
Already by June, it looked like that by September we would be tightening back up.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Hey, Reed, what's happening, man? That's good.
Excited for your senior year?
We got schools? Yeah. Cool, good for it. What's been turning on? Cool. Good luck with that. And you got backup? No, we do that. Hopefully we won't need it. I thought you wanted to do something warm, brother.
Carnegie Mellon is definitely closer.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
See, when you're supposed to be like January, February type time?
Oh, now that you're applying to schools more northerly, you should definitely look at my alma mater, Boston University. It's a great school. Of course, I hope that you get into your first choice early decision school and that it's over for you.
Thank you.
Art, this is the last week with the long list, and
We're gonna clean the list.
we sent out a notice that we're cleaning the list, and next week it will be only the people who resubmit.
Good. We need to do that. The other thing we should do is start to push the knowledge that the Rosh Hashanah evening time has changed, so that, I know it was in the all stuff, but we should,
Yeah.
get that on people's radar in the next couple of weeks. Because that is a big change, and most people may not, they may just,
Yeah, I mean, I agree that we should talk about it and put it high up in our weekly newsletter and whatever, but
they don't come.
most people don't read that letter.
No, they don't. That's why, whenever we can say something.
Yeah, I'll say something today also. The schedule for the high holidays.
We're talking about you, of course. Everything's about you. The most important person in the world.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
It's time to get new shoes, yeah.
When you go back to school? September, that's pretty soon. Really? Me too.
Every November.
Me too. It's a good month for birthdays, right? Those November people are really, really good about that.
Before Labor Day. I figured that was because of Rosh Hashanah.
But because there's two, they're both Rosh Hashanah. Most years it's one or the other. Now they've got two, so they gotta make up the extra time.
Yeah.
So you gotta start a little bit earlier. Right. So you gotta fit it in. And also Labor Day is late too. So.
That's true. Labor Day is as late as it can be.
So between Labor Day and two Jewish holidays on a weekday, it pushes it up.
Yep.
You know what I have to say to you? What? Well, I don't know.
Art's playing the world's smallest violin for you.
Just for you. You feel really bad when you have to go back a couple of days early. Did they start, don't have a later start time in high school now?
Yeah, it's 8:30, which is like really late. That means like sports, like, 'cause I have sport all year round, like during the winter, we're gonna be out in the sun.
Well, aren't you excited?
We run in the cold.
All right. Shabbat Shalom. And welcome to Congregation Agudat Achim's live stream and in-person Shabbat morning service. It's 9:15. The ritual committee has moved our start time back to 9:15 from 9:45, but with the idea that we would spend a little bit of time doing something spiritual to prepare for our service. Psukei de Zimra, the verses of praise, are the opening part of Shachrit, has an intention, and the intention is that we experience different modalities of spiritual connection to prayer as a warm-up for davening. So last week we did meditation, which is a traditional, the rabbis taught that we should, in fact, show up at synagogue an hour before the service starts just to meditate so that you can be fully prepared. So meditation was what we did last week. This week we're going to do study. Now, study is a traditional part of the Psukei de Zimra service. In fact, there are texts that are designed for daily study. And we're today going to specifically delve into one psalm, Psalm 91, which is one of the psalms that we say specifically on Shabbat at the Psukei de Zimra of Shabbat. And we're going to do some of the other prayers that surround Psalm 91, and then we'll dive right into Psalm 91. So I invite you to follow along with me. We begin with the morning blessings, page 10. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech bina lavchim ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani betzalmo Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokaretz alamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasali kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozei Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam otei Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanotein l'yaif koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavir shneim elayim. Unenu hayom v'chol yom l'cheinu l'chesed rachamim b'einecho b'nei koreinu b'tzik malenu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chazim tovim l'amo Yisrael. Yirat tzom b'fnecha Adonai. Ashreinu matovuchinu manayim goraleinu mayafa yerushateinu ashreinu shanachnu mashki'im u'marivim erev b'boker v'omrim pamayim b'chol yom Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Kadesh et shimcha makdishei shemecha v'kadesh et shimcha b'olamecha v'yishuatcha tarim v'tagvia karneinu. Baruch atah Adonai v'kadesh et shimcha barabim. We continue on page 50. You may be seated for Psalm 30 on page 50. Mizmor shir Chanukat Havayim David. Ha'afachta mispidin lemacholi, v'takta saki v'tazreni simcha, l'man yizamercha kavod v'lo yidom, Adonai Elohai le'olam odeka. We rise for Baruch She'amar, page 54. Baruch She'amar, v'ya'olam. Yachir chei holamim, Melech mishbachim foradi ad shemo agadol, Baruch atah Adonai, Melech mulal batish bachot. You may be seated. We continue on the bottom of page 66 with Psalm 91. Psalm 91 begins on the bottom of page 66. We're going to begin our meditation, our study of Psalm 91. With the opportunity to sing the whole psalm in Hebrew. So we'll start with that. The tune is really easy. I'll sing through the melody and then we'll jump into the psalm. So please do sing along with me. Yam bam bam ba da ya da 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 dum. Yam bam ba da da ya da da da. Yam bam ba da ya da 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 dum. Yam bam ba da da ya da da dum. Ya da da ya da 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 dum. Ya da 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 dee da 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 dum. Ya da da. Bottom of 66. Yoshev Beseter Elyon Betzel Shaddai Yihitlona Nomar Ladonai Maxium Tudati Elohai Eftach Bo Ki Hu Yatzil Chami Pach Yakush Midever Hahavot Evrato Yasech Lach ותחת כנפיו תחסד, ציניו ושוכר עמיתו, לא תירא מפחד לילה מחץ, יעוף יומם מדבר באופל יהלוך, מכתב ישוד צהריים, יפול מצדך אלף, ורבבה מימינך, אליך לא ייגש, רק בעיניך תביט, ושילומת רשעים תראה, כי אתה אדוני מחזי עליון. שמת מעונך לא תאונה לך רע, ונגע לא יקרא באוהלך, כי מלאכיו יצווה לך, לשמורך בכל דרכיך. על כפיים יישאונך, פן תיגוף באבן רגליך, שכב פתן תדרוך, תרמוס כפיר ותנין, כי פיך שק בפלטהו, השגבהו כי ידע שמי, יקראני ועיניהו, עמו אנוכי בצרה, חלצהו וכבדהו, אורך ימים אשביעהו ויראהו בישועתי, אורך ימים אשביעהו ויראהו בישועתי, אורך ימים אשביעהו ויראהו בישועתי, אורך ימים אשביעהו ויראהו בישועתי. So my first question is, singing through the psalm, what do you notice? What jumps out at you about the rhythm, the meter, the words, the person, the point of view, the sound of the Hebrew? What jumps out from the song? There's a joy to it. Roberta imagines people dancing to this song. Nice. There's a triumphal aspect to it. Something about it, like maybe you could imagine people singing after a victory in battle or a victorious march. Some of that has to do with the tune. Some of it has to do with the sound of the words themselves and the rhythm. One thing that I noticed is there were 3 lines where it was a 3-part stick instead of a 2-part stick, right? Most of the psalm is all the same meter, but there are a couple of places where the meter shifts. And one question that I have is there meaning to that shift of meter, or is it just that the poet wanted to say something that couldn't be fit onto the line? We know from some other psalms that when the meter doesn't fit, actually there's the part of Hallel where it really doesn't fit in the towards the end, right before the last Hodu, where we read something that it feels like really squished in the music. There are a lot of scholars that think that that section was actually an instruction for how to act while saying these words. And it was actually like a marginalia that got accidentally subsumed into the psalm. You know, while you're saying these words, please make sure to light the Ketoret Hasamim, and then we just have the Ketoret Hasamim in our psalm. So I wonder if there's something like that here too. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next phase of our deep dive into Psalm 91, which is we're going to read it in English. So let's read it responsively, because that's how it has it in our book. We're going to read it responsively, but maybe actually we won't read it responsively. Maybe I'll just read it, because I was about to say we're going to read it responsibly, but try to read it like it's a full poem as opposed to like it's a litany. It's hard to do that actually when we're reading responsively, because you're trying to say the words along with everybody else. So let me just read it to you. Dwelling in the shelter of the Most High, abiding in the shadow of the Almighty, I call the Lord my refuge and fortress, my God in whom I trust. God will save you from the fowler's snare, from deadly pestilence. God will cover you with God's wings. In God's shelter you will find refuge. Fear not the terror by night, or the arrow that flies by day, the pestilence that stalks in darkness, or the plague that rages at noon. Though 1,000 fall at your side, 10,000 close at hand, it will never touch you. God's faithfulness will shield you. You need only look with your eyes to see the recompense of the wicked. You have made the Lord your refuge, the Most High your haven. No evil shall befall you, no plague shall approach your dwelling. God will instruct God's angels to guard you in all your paths, to carry you in their hands lest you stumble on a stone. You will step on cubs and cobras, tread safely on lions and serpents. Since he is devoted to me, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he cares for me. When he calls to me, I will answer. I will be with him in time of trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. I will satisfy him with long life and lead him to enjoy my salvation fully. So, in reading the English, well, let me read it one more time, this time from the Sidur Lev Shalem, the newer translation. And while I'm reading the English the second time, think about who is speaking in this psalm, and does the sense that we got just from singing it through match up with the meanings of the words? One who abides in the sheltering secret of the one on high, lodges in the shadow of the Almighty. I call Adonai my protector, my fortress, my God whom I trust. God will save you from the hidden snare, the threat of deadly plague. God's wings will nestle you and protect you. God's truth will be your shield and armor. You shall not fear terror at night, arrows flying in daylight, pestilence stalking in the dark, nor plague blackening the moon. Though 1,000 may fall at your side, tens of thousands at your right hand, nothing will reach you. You have but to look with your own eyes, and you shall see the recompense of evildoers. Yes, you, Adonai, are my protector. You have made the one on high your refuge. Evil shall not befall you, nor plague approach your tent. For God will instruct angels to guard you wherever you go. They will carry you in the palms of their hands, lest your foot strike a stone. You will tread on pythons and cubs, trample on snakes and lions. Because you desired me, I shall save you. I shall raise you up, for you were conscious of my name. When you call upon me, I shall answer you. I shall be with you in times of trouble. I shall strengthen you and honor you. I shall satisfy you with the fullness of days and show you my deliverance. I shall satisfy you with the fullness of days and show you my deliverance. All right, who's speaking in this poem? Roberta. Okay, so where do you see the writer? Great. So there are at least two voices, says Roberta. There's the psalmist. The psalmist writes. The psalmist speaks for most of the psalm, and the last 6 lines or so are the psalmist's voice of God, God's response to the psalmist. So what is the psalmist's message? Like, what is the psalmist asking for? Or maybe to say it the other way, what is God saying at the end? Yeah, God's going to give us protection and long life, right? God says, because you cared about me, I'm going to give you protection and long life. And what the psalmist is asking for over the course of this psalm is protection, mostly from fear, right? There's a lot of potential things that could cause terror, from the pythons to the plague. And the psalmist brings up all of these things, but it's okay, says God, I've got you. I've got you. So, does anybody have a different thought about how many speakers there are here? Sidur Lev Shalem says there are 3 voices in this poem. I think Roberta is right on that the translation that we have in Sidur Sim Shalom only imagines 2 voices. By the time Sidur Lev Shalem came around, whoever it was that translated this was convinced that there are actually 3 voices, which I think is interesting. And if you read the translation if you were looking at the page that I read from, they mark the 3 voices with regular text, italics text, and then quoted text at the bottom. There are 3 voices in this poem: a speaker, perhaps a priest in the temple, assuring God's protection; the worshiper, who affirms belief in God; and then, and that's indicated in the English translation with italics; and then finally, God's own declaration in response, promising the supplicant long life. So, where is it that the person is speaking, the person who comes to the priest for assurance? For that, you have to notice the tense of the psalm. A lot of the psalm is written to you, but some of the psalm is written about me, I. So if you look at the second person parts, the second person's parts are all like, God will save you from the hidden snare. God's wings will nestle you and protect you. You shall not fear terror, right? But the parts that are written in the first person, Ki ata Adonai machsi, because you, God, are my protector. And at the top, Omar ladonai machsi umutsudati Elohai evtach bo. I call on Adonai my protector, my fortress, my God whom I trust. So I imagine this psalm, the way that this description is, right? Why is it in our Shabbat morning liturgy? It's here because we are the supplicant. We are coming to the synagogue, to our service, to God, and it's comforting to hear both the response of our religious leaders, the priest, the person who says, God is going to protect you, and how powerful it is that the psalm closes with God's own voice. I've got you. You're okay. But our voice, the voice of the reader, the supplicant, the person coming to the service, is also present in this psalm. So to me, this psalm really speaks to what prayer is and what it means to prepare for prayer. It means to come ready to put our own voice into the words of the text of the tefillah. So I'm just going to close and then close this learning section, and then we'll continue with Psukei de Zimra for another couple minutes by reading a poem by Malka Chaifetz Tussman, translated by Marcia Falk. The poem is called Love the Ruins. With one letter of your many names you broke in, and now you live your own hot life in me. With one sound of your many names you pierced yourself in me, and now you feed on my heart's blood. Soon you will shatter me from within. Then gather up the splinters and love the ruins, my God. Love the ruins. With one letter of your many names you broke in, and now you live your own hot life in me. With one sound of your many names you pierced yourself in me, and now you feed on my heart's blood. Soon you will shatter me from within, then gather up the splinters and love the ruins, my God. We continue with Ashrei, page 80. Ashrei Yoshev Techa, Odi Alucha Sela, Ashrei Am Shikachalo, Ashrei Am Sharonai Elohav. פותח את ידיך ומשפיע לך חי רצון, צדיק ונאמן, תהילת אדוני דבר פיו, יברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברכיה מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We turn now to page 88. Hallelujah. Hallel bekodsho. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Kol anshama tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol anshama tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai le'olam amen v'amen. Baruch Adonai Elohim Baruch Shem Kvodo le'olam milech kvodo kol haaretz amen v'amen. Vayivarech David. We rise, page 90. Ata Adonai Elohim asher bacharta be'Avraham ve'otzeito me'or kasdim v'samta shemo Avraham u'matzata levavo ne'eman lefanecha v'charot imo habrit v'hayam bakata lifneihem v'yavru b'toch hayam yavasha v'rodfei mishlachta b'nsolot k'mo even b'mayim azim v'yoshan v'yom hahu v'yisham yam Mitzrayim Vayartzu al Yadullah asher Adonai b'Mitzrayim vayiruam et Adonai vayaminu b'Adonai Moshe avdo az yashir Moshe b'Mitzrayim. Yemin Adonai nenem Tipol aleihem mata v'fachad bigdol srochadim koaven ad yavram Adonai ad yavram zukanita tevi emo v'tita emo bahar nachalatcha machon neshiftecha palt Adonai mikdash Adonai kanenu yadecha Adonai imloch le'olam v'ed Adonai imloch le'olam v'ed Ki l'Adonai Muhammad Shavuayim Alamoshim b'Aitzion nishpor d'Aisa v'Aital Adonai hamlucha V'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz V'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz V'yamahu Adonai echad U'shemo echad. We turn to page 334. Nishmat kol chai. Yivarech et Shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. You may be seated. Baruch Hu Adonai. Ilu finu malei shira kayam. Page 336, 8 lines from the top of the page. Ki chopelecha yodeh, v'chol ashon lecha tishava, v'chol berech lecha tichra, v'chol koma lefanecha tishtachaveh, v'chol levavot yiraucha, v'chol kerev uchlayot yizamru lishmecha, kadavar shekatuv, kol atzmotai tomar Adonai michamocha, matzil ani mechazak mimenu, ani v'evyon migozalo, mid melach umi yishvelach, umi yaroch lach, ha'el agadol agibor v'anora, El Elyon koneh shamayim v'aretz, nehalelcha neshabecha nefaecha, unevarech et shem kodshecha kamor leDavid. Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chol keravai et Shem kodsho ha'el betatzumot uzecha hagadol bichvod shemecha hagibor lanetzach v'hanora b'norotecha ha'melech ha'yoshev ha'kisei ram v'nisa. We continue with the formal chanting of Shacharit, which Orit will be leading us in, which can be found on the bottom of page 336 with the words Shochein Ad.
Shochein ad maharom v'kadosh shemo.
Shochein Ad Maharom v'kadosh shemo v'chatzur.
Desi yesharam tihit halahal, divrei tzadikim tihit barach, u'vilshon chasidim tihit romam, u'bekerev kedoshim tihit kadash. U'makalot revivot amcha beit Yisrael. Shekein chova kol ha'yitzurim lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu lehadol leha'el leshabeach lefa'er leromim lehader levarech le'oleu lekales al kol divrei shiro v'tishbacho David ben Yishai avdecha meshichecha.
We rise for Yishtabach, page 338.
Yishtabach shimcha lahamalkeinu ha'el ha'melech hagadol v'hakadosh b'shamayim u'ba'aretz.
Berachot hodot
Brachot v'hoda'ot me'ata v'yad ha'olam baruch atah Adonai El melech gadol batishbachot, El ha'ador Adonai niflaot, Habocher b'shirei zimra, Melech elchei ha'olamim.
You may be seated as we continue with the brachot before Kriyat Shema, which can be found in the middle of page 340. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or borei choshech, oseh shalom.
Hakol yohducha ve'hakol yashbichucha. In karech Adonai Eloheinu b'olam hazeh v'hein zuatcha malkeinu l'chayei olam haba efes bilcha go'aleinu limot hamashiach ve'ein domeh lecha moshienu l'chiyat hametim. El Adon HaKol HaMasim Baruch Umvarach B'fi Kol Neshama Gadlu V'tuvo Malei Olam Dadud V'huna Hasov V'imoto Hamid Gahel Chayot HaKodesh V'nehar V'chava Amer Chava Zechut Umishor Lifnei Chiso Chesed V'rachamim Lifnei Kvodo Tovim Meyorot Shebara Eloheinu Yitzaram B'dat B'bina U'maskel Koach Uvura Natan Bahem Liyoh Moshlim B'kerev Tevel Zivu Mifim Noganai Hezivam B'chol HaOlam Smechim B'Seitam V'Sasim V'Yovam Osim B'Hema Reson Konam Pe'er V'Chavod Nonim Lishmot Soha V'Rina L'Zecher Malchuto Kara Shemesh va'yizrach ora v'hitkin surat havana shevach nonim lo kol seva marom tiferet ugedula srafim ve'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh Ha'el asher shabbat mikol ha'masim bayom hashvi'i. Titbarha suhurenu malkeinu v'gohalenu borei kedoshim. Kulam purim, kulam giborim. Kulam ahuvim, kulam berurim, kulam giburim, ve'kulam osim be'mavira v'tzahon konam, ve'kulam potchim et pihem b'kedusha v'tohora, b'shira v'zimra, mevarchim u'mishravachim, u'marifim u'maritzim u'makdishim u'mahamlichim. Hashem ha'ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol, ha'gibor v'hanora ha'kadoshu. Kulam machlihem alehem malchut shamayim zehem mizeh v'notim reshut zeh lazeh lehagdish liyotzram b'nachat ruach b'safa berura v'ne'ima kedushaha kulam ke'echad onim ve'omrim behirha kadosh 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 Adonai tzavot melech ha'aretz kevodo Ve'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh berash gadol minasim lumat serafim lumat ha'meshavchim ve'omrihim Baruch Adonai Minkomo Le'el Baruch Nihimot Yitenu Or Chadash Atzihahon Tahir V'niskechu Anu Meherav Leoraho Baruch Atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot.
Amen. Page 346.
Ahava Rabbav Tanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lagedola V'Teira Chamalta Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Ba'avur Avoteinu Shabbat Chubecha Shabbat Chubecha Avinu Malkeinu V'Telam Tempuke Chaim Kein Techoneinu Tamdeinu Avinu Ha'av HaRachama Hamrachem Rachem Aleinu V'ten B'libeinu Lehavin Lehavinu Haskil Lishmoa Lilmodu Lelamed Lishmor V'lasod Ukayem et kol divrei Talmud Torah Techav V'ha'erneinu b'toratecha v'dabek b'beinu mitzvotecha v'yachem levaveinu li'ahava u'yirat shemecha v'lo neivosh le'olam va'ed v'lo Agadol Adorat Achim Nagila v'nismecha b'shuvatecha v'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolicheinu kol memiyut le'artzeinu ki helpo el Yeshuadata uvanu v'acharta mikol am v'lashon v'keirabtanu l'shimcha hagadol Selah be'emet v'hodol lecha Yachedcha v'yahava Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'yamo Yisrael v'yahava HaMelech Ne'eman Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'chol levacha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha U'v'lechtecha b'derech u'b'shofecha u'b'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu etotafot b'neinecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'yisharecha v'haya Adonai Elohechem Emet Emet v'yatziv v'nachon v'kayam v'yashar. L'dor v'dor hu kayam u'shmo kaya v'chiso nachon u'malchuto v'emunato l'yad kayamet v'varav hayim v'kayamim. Emet shehatahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Malkeinu Melech Avotenu Goelheinu Goel Avotenu Yotzreinu Tor Yeshuatenu Podenu Matilenu Me'olam Shemecha Ein Elohim Zuhulatecha Ezrat Avotenu Hatahu Me'olam. Tehilot le'Elyon Baruch Umvorach Moshe v'nei Yisrael Lechanu Shira v'simcha rabba v'yamruhu chuham Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot ohoseh v'heleh Shira chadashah, shiplu gelim l'shimcha hasvatayam, yachad kulam, hodu v'yim lichu v'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Tzur Yisrael, kuma be'ezra Yisrael, uvdechenu mecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael, go aleinu Adonai tzvahot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai God Yisrael.
We join with Orit for the beginning of the Amidah, page 354. Following the Kedusha, we continue with the individual whispered Amidah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah El HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim B'konei HaKol V'zocher chastei avot Umevi goel livnei v'neihem L'man shemo v'yahava Melech ozer foked u'moshiach u'magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham U'foked Sarah Atah gibor le'olam Adonai Mechayei metim atarav le'hoshia Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei metim berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofech oholim, umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha bal gevuro umito melech melech memit umechayehu matzmiach Yeshua v'nemanat al chayot metim Baruch atah Adonai v'chayei hametim. Nekadesh Hashem Chabalam Kishem Shemakti Oto Bishmehem Arahom Kakatuva Yadni Vecha Vekaraze Elze V'Amar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzvaot Melech Haaretz Kevodo Az B'Kol Rahash Gadol Adir V'Chazak Mashmi'ihim Koho Mitnasim Lumat Rafihim Lumatam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Adonai Mimkomcha Malkeinu Tofia V'Timloch Aleinu Ki Mechakim Anachnu Lach Mimkomcha Malkeinu Tofia V'Timloch Aleinu Ki Mechakim Anachnu Lach Matai Timloch B'Tzion Matai Timloch B'Tzion Bekarov b'yamenu le'olam b'het tishkon Bekarov b'yamenu le'olam b'het tishkon Titkada v'titkadash b'toch Yerushalayim ircha Ledor vador hu lenetzach unetzach netzachim V'heinenu tirena malchutecha Kadavar ha'amor b'shirei uzecha Ayidei David Mishiach Tzidkecha Yimloch Adonai Olam Adonai Yisrael Ledor vador Hallelujah Ledor vador Nagid Godacha Lenetzach Netzachim Kedushach Natish V'shivcha Eloheinu mipina lo yamush le'olam ba'et Ki el melech gadol v'kadosh ata Baruch atah Adonai ha'el ha'kadosh
If you haven't completed your individual whispered Amidah, please continue davening. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 392.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach yurteh, ve'amlich malchuteh, v'chayachonu yomechonu, v'chayid kol beit Yisrael, b'hagalav izman kari v'imeru.
Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam le'almei almaya, yitbarach.
Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, yitadar v'yital shemei dekudesha.
Brichu.
Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, truth v'chata v'nechamata, damiram be'alma v'imeru.
Amen.
Tika bel tzahona uva'uton, dechol Yisrael kadam v'hon yishamai v'imeru.
Amen.
Yehehe shalom rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imeru.
Amen.
Ahoseh shalom b'mamav huyaseh shalom aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imeru.
Amen. We turn back to page 32 for the Psalm for Shabbat, page 32. Yom Yom Shabbat Kodesh,
Shabbat kodesh shabo hayivim yomim mihiz mor shir yom hashabbat. Ninevun v'seva d'shenim v'ralanim yehiyu l'hagiki yashar Adonai tzuri v'lo avata b'ho.
We continue on page 40 with the Psalm for the days of awe. Le David Adonai Ori Vishimimi
David Adonai uri shema.
Lecha amar libi b'shivana epanecha nayavaki amar libi b'shivana epanecha Hashem avaki shema Hashem Nulei haman tilir b'tuven eretz chayim kavei Adonai chazak v'meitzivecha v'kavei Adonai.
Lulei hamanti l'ropetu v'Adonai be'aretz chayim kivei Adonai chazak yametzibecha v'kavei Adonai.
Kaddish Avelim, Mourner's Kaddish, page 52. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala uv'izman kari v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam alamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom mimramav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Shabbat shalom. Welcome to Congregation Agudat Achim's in-person and live stream Shabbat morning service, and a Yasher Koach to Orit for leading us this morning in Shacharit. If you've been joining us, we started at 9:15 this morning as the ritual committee has asked that we return to our pre-COVID start time of 9:15. This morning, we took the extra time that we had to really delve deeply into Psalm 91 to do a little bit of iyun, of a deep dive into that psalm. Study is one of the modalities that the rabbis instituted for preparing for prayer. Last week we did meditation, this week study. Next week and the week after, one of them will be an opportunity to dive into Psukei Zimra in English, and the other will be an opportunity to dive into Psukei Zimra through song. I invite you to come at 9:15 to enjoy the different modalities of preparing for prayer, of warming up for davening. We continue to have our custom of beginning our Torah service with Hagba. If you've been assigned an aliyah this morning and you are not going to be up on the bima because we are taking our aliyot from below the bima, please make sure that during the lifting of the Torah that you have an opportunity to have a visual recognition of the text of the Torah, and you are thinking of that when you say your blessings for your aliyah. We continue now with the service for taking the Torah out of the ark, which can be found on page 394.
In Kamocha Elohim Adonai v'hin k'ma'asecha
Malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha
b'chol dor v'dor
Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch Elam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Harachamim heitiva b'rtzoncha et Zion Tivnech omot Yerushalayim Tivnech omot Yerushalayim Kivecha levad vatachnu Melech el ram v'nizadon olamim. We rise as the ark is open.
Vayehi bin Aharon vayomer Moshe
Kuma Adonai v'yachutzu oivecha v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzeh Torah ki mitzion tetzeh Torah u'devar Adonai miYerushalayim Baruch Shenatan
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadol Adonai Yiti, Unerobim Hashem Yachdav.
Adonai Hagedula, Ve'Hagevura, Ve'Hatiferet, Ve'Hanetzach, Ve'Hahod, Ki Chol B'Shamayim U'Ba'aretz. Lecha Adonai HaMamlacha, Ve'Haminaseh, Lechol Erosh. Ramamu, Ramamu, Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'Yishtachavu,
Ve'Yishtachavu, L'Adam
Raglav
Kadoshu.
Romamu,
Romamu,
Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'Yishtachavu, Ve'Yishtachavu, Adonai Eloheinu. We remain standing as the Torah is lifted. V'zot haTorah she'sa Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Vayazor v'yagin v'yoshia l'chol ha'chosim bo v'nomar amen hakol havu g'dalinu kavod laTorah Yamod. Yirachmi al-Asher ben Moshe Dudi Daliyah Rishona Baruch Shenatan Torah L'Am Yisrael B'Kedushato V'atem Advekim B'Araychem Chaim Buchem Hayom. This morning we read from Parashat Ki Teitzei, as I said last night at Mincha and Kabbalat Shabbat. Parashat Ki Teitzei has in it 74 different laws. It is the most concentrated laws per parsha in the Torah. You could do a class where you taught one law from Parashat Ki Teitzei in detail every week for a year and a half. Which maybe we should do someday. Last night I spoke about one of the laws. We did one of the laws at this past Tuesday's teaching, and I'm going to focus on the laws of Hashevat Avedah, returning lost objects, in my teaching later this morning. We will begin in the middle of the parasha, chapter 23, verse 8, which can be found on page 1123 of our Chumash. This morning we did not have a minyan when we got to the Baruch, so this will count as our Baruch. So I invite everybody to stand for Baruch as Bob does the Torah blessings, and we can all count his Baruch for his Aliyah as our Baruch for this morning, as our call to prayer. Again, you can follow along on page 1123, verse 8.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'shebach rabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. You may be seated.
Amen. לא תתאהב אדומי, כי אחיך הוא, לא תתאהב מצרי, כי גר היית בארצו. עניים אשר יוולדו להם דור שלישי, יבוא להם בקהל אדוני, כי תצא מחנה על אויביך, ונשמרת בכל דברה, כי יהיה בך איש אשר לא יהיה טהור מקרה לילה, ויצא אל מחוץ למחנה, לא יבוא אל תוך המחנה, תוך המחנה, והיה לפנות ערב, ויחרץ במים, וכבוא השמש יבוא אל תוך המחנה.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Let's see what happens on this one.
Rachel bat Eliezer v'Yocheved Aliyah Shenit. The second Aliyah can be found on page 1124, verse 13.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam voed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen.
אמן. ויד תהיה לך מחוץ למחנה, ויצאת שמה חוץ, ויתד תהיה לך על אזניך, והיה בשבתך חוץ, וחפרת בה, ושבת וכיסית את צאתך, כי אדוני אלוהיך מתהלך בקרב מחניך, להצילך ולתת אויביך לפניך, והיה מחנך קדוש, ולא יראה לך ערוות דבר, ושב מאחריך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nata lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. The third Aliyah can be found on page 1124, verse 16.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
אמן. לא תזכיר עבד אל אדוניו, אשר ינצל אליך מעם אדוניו, עמך ישב בקרבך, במקום אשר יבחר באחד שעריך, בטוב לו לא תוננו, לא תהיה קדשה מבנות ישראל, ולא יהיה קדש מבני ישראל. לא תביא אתנן זונה ומחיר כלב, בית אדוני אלוהיך לכל נדר, כי תועבת אדוני אליך גם שניהם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. Tamod Rivka Sarah bat Moshe Pesach Vashrei Hinda Aliyah Revi'it. The fourth Aliyah can be found on page 1125, verse 20.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Lo tashich le'achicha neshech kesef, neshech ochel, neshech kol devar asher yishach. Lenochri tashich le'achicha lo tashich lama'an yivarechecha Adonai Elohecha bechol mishlach yadecha al ha'aretz asher ata v'shamal rishta ki tidor neder l'Adonai Elohecha lo teacher l'shalmo ki darosh yidrashenu Adonai Elohecha meimach v'hayab v'haya v'chachet v'chi techdal indor lo yeh v'chachet motza sfatecha tishmor v'asita כאשר נדרת לאדוני אלוהיך נדבה אשר דיברת בפיך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. The fifth aliyah can be found on page 1127, verse 25.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. כי תבוא בחרם רעך ויאכלת ענבים כנפשך סובך ואל כליך לא תיתן ואל כליך לא תיתן כי תבוא בקמות רעך וכתבת מלילות בידיך וחרמש לא תניף על קמת רעך כי כך איש אישה ובעלה וחיילו אם לא תמצא חן בעיניו כי מצבה ערוות דבר וכתב לה ספר כריתות ונתן בידה ושילחה מביתו ויצא מביתו והלכה והייתה לאיש אחר ושנאה האיש האחרון וכתב לה ספר כריתות ונתן בידה ושילחה מביתו או כי ימות האיש האחרון אשר לקחה לו לאישה לא יאכל בידה לא יאכל בעלה הראשון אשר שילחה לשוב לקחתה להיות לו לאישה אחרי אשר הוטמאה כי תועבה היא לפני אדוני ולא תחתי את הארץ אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך נחלה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Right where it says
Esther, Aliyah Shishit. The sixth Aliyah can be found on page 1128, chapter 24, verse 5.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן, כי כך איש אישה חדשה לא יצא בצבא ולא יעבור עליו לכל דבר, נקי יהיה לביתו שנה אחת ושימח את אשתו אשר לקח, לא יחבול רחיים ורכב, כי נפש הוא חובל, כי מצא איש גונב נפש מאחיו מבני ישראל, והתעמר בו ומכרו ומת הגנב ההוא, וביער טהרה מקרבך. No, keep going. הרע מקרבך, הישמר בנגע הצרת, לשמור מאוד ולעשות לכל אשר יורו אתכם הכהנים הלוויים, כאשר ציוויתם תשמרו לעשות, זכור את אשר עשה אדוני אלוהיך למרים בדרך צאתכם ממצרים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Tamod. In the Bad Ezrachaim B'itka, Aliyah Shvi'it. The seventh Aliyah can be found on page 1129, at the last verse, verse 10.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן, כי תשב רעך משעת מאומה, לא תבוא אל ביתו לעבוד אבותו בחוץ, תעמוד האיש אשר אתה נושב בו, ויוציא אליך אל האבות, את האבות החוצה, ואם איש עני הוא, לא תשכב באבותו, השיב לו את האבות, כבוא השמש, ושכב בשלמתו, וברכך ככה, ולך תהיה צדקה לפני אדוני אלוהיך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We rise as the ark is open for the healing prayer. Mishebeirach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeirach avoteinu Abraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, Yirech, v'Yirpeh, et hacholim, et Shai, Aviad, ben Balfura, Vet Fegalea bat Minsasura, Vet Shalom ben Chaya, Vet Rochel bat Avram, Ved Andrew Parisi, Ved Chris Parisi, Ved Sharon Nechama, Bad Ruven Merezel, Ved Gabriel Mordechai ben Pesi, Ved Omari Gray, Ved Aaron ben Devora, Ved Leah bat Devora, Ved Yakira bat Devora, Ved Bluma bat Gittel, Ved Dina bat Fegla, Ved Eliza bat Dina, Ved Akiva ben Gittel, Ved Miriam bat Malka, Ved Eliyahu ben Malka, Ved Bracha bat Batya, Ved Miriam bat Sarah, Ved Menachem Mendel ben Zipporah, Ved Robert Borshwitz, Ved Yoreh bat Sarah, Ved Dan Moshe ben Nani, Ved Kyle Scheffler, Ved Cecilia Lynn, Ved Michal Ruth bat Tova, Ved Linda Pearlstein, Ved Robert Pearlstein, Ved Michael Roberts, Ved Eric Hurst, Ved Riva Bela bat Reza, Ved Sima Freda bat Chanayenta, Ved Shlomo Moshe ben Miriam, Ved Yitamasha bat Rochel, Ved Dylan Middleton, Ved Yaakov Moshe ben Batya Mindel, Ved Perry bat Shulamit, Ved Manish Yisachar ben Rachel, Ved Asher Yosef ben Fega Malka, Ved Chaim Ruven ben Hinda, Ved Amy Laughlin, Ved Alan Finger, Ved Shlomo ben Yudazeh, Ved David Aram ben Siva, Ved Matt Hopkins, Ved Greta Jansen, Ved Adam ben Menachem Aleya, Ved Meir Fivel ben Brindle, Ved Chanasura bat Branka Bracha, Ved Aram ben Chava, Ved Jackie Friedlander, Ved Mari Treviso, Ved Neil Eliyahu Chaim, Ved Lesar, Ved Miriam bat Malka, Ved Bracha bat Myra, Ved Malka bat Golda, Ved Tamar Chaya bat Ruvain. Ved Kolach Valim Bigalag Dushaz, Dagadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem, Lach Zikam Larapotam, Vayishlach Lahem Meira, Refuah Shema Mina Shamayim, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf, Betoch Shar Cholei Yisrael V'Haolam, Nechizek Yedidei Oskim Tzorcheihem, Shabbat Yilno Zok V'Harufuah Krov Alavo, HaShabbat Galav Izman Kariv, Nomar Amen. Mishebeirachimotenu Vekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. A note that just before Rosh Hashanah, this coming Shabbat, we will be retiring this list of folks that were praying for their healing, and we'll start a new, fresh list for the new year. So if you'd like to add people to that list, make sure to keep a lookout for the new link to the new list in the weekly and on our website and on our Facebook page, and click on that and add your names. Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabba Ve'amad yirach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei Echayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael Magala uv'izman kariv imeru Amen. Yeshmei Rabba mevarach Le'alam la'almei almayahi Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitramam v'yinatzei v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalash Shmei Kedusha b'rihu Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata tamiran me'alma v'imeru Amen. Shimshon ben Yeshia, Hali Kriyata Haftarah.
Baruch Hu Adonai Am Barach.
Baruch Hanam Baruch Olam
Baruch
Va'ed.
Hanam Barach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki tashel v'recha mishat ma'uma lo tavo el beito le'avot avoto v'chutz ta'amod ha'ish asher ata noshevo יוציא לך אל האבות, את האבות החוצה, ואם איש עני הוא לא תשכב באבותו, השב תשיב לו את האבות, כבוא השמש, ושכב בשלמתו, וברכך, ולך תהיה צדקה לפני אדוני אלוהיך. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. The Haftarah for Parashat Ki Teitzei is the 5th Haftarah of consolation and can be found on page 1138. From the prophet Isaiah, chapter 54. It has a beautiful understanding of God's chesed, of God's love. Toward the end of it, we wish a Yasher Koach to Howie for chanting the Torah this morning, and in advance a Yasher Koach to Art for chanting the Haftarah.
Yeah, don't blink, it'll be over in a second. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'divrei amarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'b'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek. Rani yakara lo yalada pitzchi rina b'tzali lo chala ki rabbi b'nei shomema mibnei ve'ula mar Adonai harchivi mikol moholech v'rivivod mishkanotayich yatu al tachsochi harichi metarayich v'teidotayich hazeki ki amin u'smol tifrotzi v'zarech goyim yirash v'yarim nishamot yoshivu al tirui ki lo tevoshi v'al tekami ki lo tachpiri ki voshet alumayich tishkachi v'cherpad amanotayich lo tizkiriod Ki vo alayich osayich Adonai tzivot shemo v'go alech kedosh Yisrael Elochei chol haaretz yikarei Ki chisha azuva v'yatzuvad ruach keracha Yadonai v'yeshet nurim Ki timae samar Elohayich V'rega katon azavtich, v'rachamim gedolim akabsech. V'tchetzef ketzef, histarti fanai rega mimech, v'chesed olam rechamtich, amar go alech Adonai. Ki me Noach zod li, asher nishbati, me'avor me Noach. Od alawaret kenishbati miksof alayich umigarbach ki harim yamushu v'hagivot temutena v'chasti meitech lo yamush uvarich lomi lo tamud amar merachamech Adonai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Sur kol ha'olamim, Tzadik b'chol ha'dorot, Vayala neman ha'omer v'yoseh, Ha'medaber u'mekayim, Shekol devarav emet v'tzedek. Neman ata hu Adonai Eloheinu, V'nemanim devarecha, V'davar echad midvarecha, Chor lo yashuv rekam, Ki hamelech neman v'rachaman ata, Baruch ata Adonai, Ha'el neman b'chol devarav. Rachem al Tzion ki beit chayenu, V'lalu v'nefesh toshia b'mera b'yameinu, Baruch ata Adonai, Misameach Zion bevaneha, Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu b'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha, U'v'malchut Beit David Mishichecha, B'mera yavo v'yagel libenu, Al kiso lo yeshev zar v'lo yinchalu od acherim et kevodo, Ki b'shem koshecha nishpata lo shelo yichben ero le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai, Magen David. Ala Torah, v'al avodah, v'al nevi'im, v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, liktusha v'limnucha, lechavod u'letifaret. Ala kol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach, u'mevarachim otach, yitbarach shemcha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai, mekadesh ha'shabbat.
Amen. Shkach. It is a nice short one, except for on the years where Rosh Chodesh falls on the third week of the weeks of consolation, in which case then we do a longer one on the 5th that includes the 3rd and the 5th, which are both from chapter 54. And which together are actually the Haftarah for Parshat Noach, because it says, Kimei Noach, Zoti. All of this important information. We continue now with the prayer for peace, which can be found on page 417. We read responsively. May we see a day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into being to hate or to destroy. Compassionate God, bless the leaders of all nations with the power of compassion. I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. Let love and justice flow like a mighty stream. And let us say, Amen. We continue with Ashrei, page 420. Kaylin is going to be leading us in Musaf and the service for returning the Torah to the Ark. Caitlin and Isaac.
Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, od yachalu hasela.
Ashrei ha'am shekachalu, Ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai Elohav.
Tehillah leDavid, aromim halohai, hamelech v'avarchashim chali'olam va'ed.
Bechol yom avarchek avalashim le'olam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai u'kulam me'od, v'ligdulato ein heker.
Dor le'dor yishabach ma'asecha gvurotecha yagidu.
Hadar kevod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha.
Ve'zuz noratecha yomeru. L'atcha atlavrena.
Secher rabtu hayabiyu, v'tzit katecha yiranenu.
V'rachum Adonai, erech ha'payim u'gdal chesed.
Tov Adonai la'kol v'rachamav al kol ma'asav.
Yoduch Adonai kol ma'asecha v'chasidecha yivarchucha.
Kevod malchuta Malchutecha yomeru, gevuratecha yadaberu.
Lodi alibnei Adam gvurota b'chvod adar malchuto.
Malchutecha malchut, kol amim umemshatecha b'chol dor v'ador.
Samech Adonai l'chol hanoflim v'zokeif l'chol hakufim.
Ene kol elecha yesaberu, ve'atanu ten lachem et ochlam bito.
Poteach et yadecha umasbiya l'chol hayratzon.
Tzadik Adonai b'chol derecha, v'hasid b'chol ma'asa.
Karov Adonai l'chol korav l'chol asher yikra'u b'emet.
Ritzon Yereav Yasa v'yet Shoatam Yishma v'yoshiem.
Shomer Adonai l'chol orav
Shehilat Adonai Yedaber Pi v'arech kol basar Shimko Chol Yolam va'ed.
V'anam v'nevarech Yahweh Olam. Hallelujah. We rise. Page 422.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Kinis Gav, Shemol Levado.
Hodov al-eretz v'shamayim, v'yarem keren leyamim, teila lecho hasidav, livnei Yisrael am karovam. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Uvneho Yomar. Ki lechach tov natati lachem, Torati al tazovu
You may be seated. If you'd like to follow along with me, the passage that I'm going to be teaching from can be found at the beginning of chapter 22 of Devarim, which can be found on page 1115. Ki lo tir et shor achicha o et seyo nidachim. If you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, v'italamta mehem, you must not ignore it. Do not ignore it. The Hebrew is a little, the grammatical tense of the Hebrew is a little challenging. The English makes it a little clearer. The lo at the beginning there, lo tir'eh v'italamta. The verbs, don't see it and ignore it. You shall not ignore it. Hashev teshivem la'achicha. You must take it back to your fellow. So, Ellie, my daughter, and I, we're reading Junie B. Jones is Not a Crook. We've been reading that the last few nights. We're at the very end of the Junie B. Jones books at the library. We've pretty much done them all, but we found this one which we hadn't done, and the theme of the Junie B. Jones is Not a Crook is can you have finders keepers? Or do you have to return things to the lost and found? You have to make an attempt to try to find out who the owner is. The Torah is very clear on this point. If you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your fellow. There's no finders keepers in oxen or sheep. If your fellow does not live near you, or you do not know who that person is who has lost it, you shall bring it home, and it shall remain with you until your fellow claims it. Then you can give it back to him. It's an interesting point, right? What does it mean to keep it until your fellow claims it? Now, the upkeep for a lost ox or sheep is much higher than the upkeep for, say, a lost laptop computer or something that we might find lying around and want to figure out how to return it. Laptop computer is just going to sit there. You're not going to need to feed it or exercise it or put it with your sheep or oxen. The Torah here has a very high standard of what it means to care for objects that you found. It would be much easier to just ignore the wandering ox, but in fact, you have to take it home with you and feed it. Now, the rabbis are very clear that when the person comes to collect it, they are responsible for the cost of the upkeep. You can send them a bill. You know, I fed it this amount every week, and that cost money, and you pay me for the upkeep. But nonetheless, this is a high demand. The rabbis also say that your fellow's ox or sheep, those are only examples. This is really anything that belongs to your fellow. But even an ox or a sheep, which has a high level of intensiveness in the care. Now Rashi asks, why does it say in the Torah, ad dirosh achicha? Why does it say until your fellow asks for it? After all, the verse just said that you don't know who it belongs to. So of course you're going to keep it till somebody asks for it. What is going on with that particular instruction? Rashi says, the meaning of the verse is, thou shalt make diligent inquiries of him that he should not be a fraudulent claimant. In other words, you can't just wait until somebody says, oh, that's my ox. You have to really make sure that it's that person's ox, and you're not giving it to somebody else. This, of course, is also a theme in the Junie B. Jones book that we're reading. She goes to look for her lost mittens in a lost and found, and she finds a backpack she really wants. Oh, well, I'll take that, she says. And the principal says, well, it's not yours. And she says, well, I think I had one just like it and I lost it. But the principal is wise to her ways. These verses appear in the midst of a long list of commandments. But it's interesting, this particular command, actually, we've seen it before in the book of Exodus. And there, Exodus chapter 23, verse 4, it says, when you encounter your enemy's ox or donkey wandering, you must take it back to him. So what does our current verse add that verse didn't add? Well, you might think that you're only responsible for returning the objects of people you don't like, but actually also anybody's object, your fellow or your enemy, anyone. The law in Deuteronomy expands more on what your responsibilities are to that object, as we were just talking about, that you have to care for. Rashi says on the words, V'hashivota lo, you have to return it to him. Shetehevo hashava, it is necessary that there be a restoration. Shalo yochal beveitcha kedei damav v'hit ba'e mimenu. It shouldn't eat in your house to its own value, and you claim this from him, in which case there is no actual restoration of what has been lost. In other words, you can charge him for the feed, but only up to the cost of the value of the animal. So if you end up housing that animal for longer then the animal is worth to feed it, you still have to return it, but you can only charge up to that amount. From here, the rabbis derived, Mikan Amru, Kol davar she'oseh ve'ochel yaseh ve'ochel, v'she'ina oseh ve'ochel yimacher. So the rabbis understand this to mean that any object which requires food should work and eat. Whatever does not work but requires feeding ultimately should be sold, and the money should be restored to the person who lost it. So if you get the ox and you're getting value of the ox while you are feeding it, that is, the ox is pulling your plow, right? So you're getting something from having being taken care of your neighbor's lost ox, then it's fine, because the value that you're getting is greater than the value that you're inputting in. But if it's something where you're not going to get any value from it, then when you find that thing, you should sell it and then try to restore the money to the person that you sold it from. The Mishnah in Bava Metzia says, the garment was also included in the generalization that one must return all of the items, right? So if we go back to our verses in Deuteronomy, you shall do the same with his donkey, you shall do the same with his garment, so you shall do with anything that your fellow loses and that you find. You must not remain indifferent. So why the donkey, why the garment? The Mishnah says the garment was also included. Why did it emerge from the generalization? Why is the garment different? Why does it say that? To draw an analogy to it and to say to you, what is notable about a garment? It is notable in that there are distinguishing marks concerning it, and it has claimants asserting ownership, and its finder is obligated to proclaim its fine. So too, with regard to any item concerning which there are distinguishing marks, and it has claimants, its finder is obligated to proclaim his fine. In other words, right, with a garment, somebody can say, oh yeah, I know that my shirt had a soup stain on it, or I was walking in the brambles and there's a small hole right along the side, and those are distinguishing marks with which a person can correctly identify their garment. The Chizkuni says, Lo tir'eh et shor achicha o et seyo nidachim. Do not inactively watch the ox or the sheep of your brother which has gone astray. This law applies even in wartime, when you are on the way to the front. What applies to these categories of domestic animals applies to all categories of domestic beasts. So the Chizkuni says, even if you're going to war, you're doing something else, this law takes precedence. You've got to really pay attention. Don't just see somebody's animal wandering. Hashev tishivem la'achicha, you must make every effort to restore these animals to your fellow. The Torah is so serious about this demand that it repeats it with slightly different wording in the immediate following verse. No, let's go a little deeper into this idea. The Kli Yakar often thinks about things in more psychological terms. The Kli Yakar says, the rabbis interpreted, with regard to the laws of returning a lost object, it is stated, you shall not see the ox of your brother or his sheep go astray and ignore them, return them to your brother. The Braita explains that the seemingly extraneous expression and disregard them must be understood to give license that at times you disregard lost objects and at times you do not disregard them. Right? So the assumption here, right, is that you might disregard them. The law specifically comes to say don't disregard them. The rabbis are wondering, are there times where it is okay to disregard the lost object. For example, a respected elder for whom it is socially inappropriate to chase after an ox is exempt from the mitzvah of v'hitalamta mehem. So you get to a certain age where, like, the idea of you running through a muddy field to chase after your neighbor's or your fellow's lost ox would be more embarrassing and uncomfortable to your neighbor that this was the person who returned it to them than it is discomforting to them to not know where their ox is. Right? At that point, it isn't appropriate for that person to do that returning. And similarly, someone may be exempt in the manner described by the rabbis in Pirkei Avot, where Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, "Do not seek to see your friend at the time of their humiliation." In other words, let's say you got into a fight with the neighbor, and you had just embarrassed them, and you hadn't yet apologized, right? And you are responsible actually to apologize first, to repair that humiliation before you return their lost object. Well, the Braita explains that the seemingly extraneous expression, I went back a paragraph, for there is no distinction between physical or financial humiliation. They are equivalent in the circumstance when it is impossible to rescue them and return whatever it was that has wandered off. This is what the text is referring to when it literally says, "Do not see the ox of your friend or the sheep that has wandered off," i.e., when they are so completely astray that they might as well be submerged in the river. In such circumstances, when the text literally says you should ignore them, it means that it is necessary for you to conduct yourself as if you had not seen. This goes back to the point that I made at the very beginning when I said that the Hebrew is ambiguous in some way because the lo, the do not, comes at the beginning of the verse, but the words v'hitalamta mehem, you shall ignore them, come at the end of the verse. And so the rabbis are actually reading into that. Like, it should say the way that it says in our English. If you see your you must you must not ignore it. Do not ignore it. But we actually have do not see blah 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 and ignore it. And so maybe there are some times, in fact, where and ignore it is the law and do not ignore it. Certainly, when the verse says you must take it back, it is teaching us that if you have the means to take it back to them, if they are not so completely astray, but rather it is possible for you to return it, then you should return it, and you are obligated, in fact, to try to return it. We'll do one last teaching about this issue. What if an object doesn't have an owner? Now we go back to our case of Junie B. Jones and the lost and found. Things which are hefker. Hefker is the rabbinic term for objects which have the legal status of ownerlessness. When a lost object's owner cannot be found, it is given the status of hefker. We see in Mishnah Peah, Beit Shammai says, that which is made ownerless only in regard to the poor is indeed ownerless. Hefker la'aniim hefker. Beit Hillel says, Eino hefker ad sheyufkar ad la'ashirim kashmita. But Beit Hillel says something isn't ownerless unless ownership is renounced even for the rich, like in the case of the sabbatical year, where rich and poor are equal. If all the sheaves in the field are a kav each, and one is 4 kavs and that one is forgotten, Beit Shammai says it is not considered forgotten, but Beit Hillel says it is considered forgotten. So, in the Shemitah year, in the year of Shemitah, and I'm going to be teaching more about Shemitah on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, because this coming year, the first day of Rosh Hashanah is the first day of the 7th year, the sabbatical year, our year of Shemitah. So I will be my teaching on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, my sermon will be on this concept of the sabbatical year. In a Shemitah year, all produce is considered hefker. All produce is rendered ownerless. It is available for anyone's consumption. In the year of Shemitah, you can walk through anyone's field and eat anything that is growing there with no problem, because it is ownerless. It is considered ownerless. In the Talmud it says, if one who vowed to render benefit from him forbidden, if the one who vowed to render benefit from him forbidden, and the one for whom benefit is forbidden were traveling together along the road, and one of them doesn't have anything to eat, the one from whom benefit is forbidden gives food to the other one as a gift, and it is permitted for that person for whom benefit is forbidden to eat the food, because it no longer belongs to the one from whom benefit is forbidden. If there is no other person with them, the one who vowed places the food on the nearest rock or on the nearest fence and says, these food items are hereby rendered ownerless and are available to anyone who wants them, and then the person for whom benefit is forbidden can take and eat the food. I guess we don't often have ourselves in this case where we make a vow not to benefit from things, but I'm trying to imagine a case where you might want to announce this is, for the time being, like rendered ownerless. There are some understandings of gift giving where giving a gift can be actually considered to have deeper ramifications. For example, can accidentally be construed as making a commitment of marriage. Right? One of the ways to get married is to give a gift, one to the other. So if you want to give a gift, but you do not want it to be considered actually from you, you might say, this gift is rendered ownerless for the time being, and then then the person can just take it. Or another way that we do this actually is when we don't pass the shovel at a funeral one to the next person like we're giving a gift of the shovel. Instead, we put it back, as if to say this shovel is ownerless. Anybody else can now take this opportunity to shovel dirt. I'm left with this question about what does it mean to really be ownerless? What are the benefits of declaring something ownerless? And how is it connected to this idea of Shemitah? How is it connected to this responsibility to return lost objects? At what point can a lost object be understood as ownerless? What would it mean to think of ourselves as ownerless? Is that sort of the way that an institution or a company could declare bankruptcy in American law, and therefore gets rid of some of the obligations from the previous year? Is there something about going into a year of ownerlessness that frees you a little bit from previous patterns, previous routines, previous obligations that you had? What would it mean to think about going into the new year ownerless, hefker, different from the way that you were in the previous year? What is our responsibility to see and not to ignore? V'hitalamta mehem, shall not ignore. So with these questions, I hope and wish that we are able to spend the last 2 weeks of 5781 in preparation for the coming high holidays, and that we're able to perhaps take a little bit of the importance of these laws with us into the coming year. Shabbat Shalom. We continue now with Musaf, page 428. Page 428, we continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, which precedes Musaf, followed by the Amidah, page 430.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach yirtei ve'amlich malachutei
V'hayikonu yomechonu chayidol beit Yisrael Bagala Ubizman kari v'meru
Amen.
Yesh me'rava v'mara Ve'yalam le'omayad
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha barechu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'ne'amata damira me'alma v'yamaru amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gonel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chatzei Avot Umevi goel b'nei b'neihem leman shemo v'yahava Melech Hoser u'Kedem Moshiach Magid Baruch atah Adonai Magid Avraham u'Fukei Sarah Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai Mechayei metim atara le'Hoshia Mechakel chayim b'chesed Mechayei metim berachamim rabim Somech noflim rofech olim Umatir asurim Umechayei enato Lishenei afar Micha mocha ba'al gevurot Umidom elach Melech me'bit umechayei Umatzliach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah l'chayot metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei ha'metim Na'aritzcha v'nakdishcha k'sotziach sarfei kodesh Na'aritzcha v'nakdishcha kisotziach sarfei kodesh Hamakdishim shimcha ba'kodesh Kagatuv al yad neviyecha V'karaza el zeh ve'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzvaot Elohim ha'aretz kivodo Kivodo malei olam Meshartav sholim zeh lazeh Ayim Mikom kivodo Leumatam Baruch Yomeru Baruch kivod Adonai Mimkomo hu yifen berachamim Ve'yachonam ham yachadim shemo Erev avoker bechol yom tamid Ha'amayim be'achava shema omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu Ve'hu Yashmi'enu Be'rachamav She'hi Ve'enei Ochai Ve'hu
lachem l'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohim. Uvdivrei kadsheha katuv le'mor.
Imlo Adonai Elam Elohai Tzion Ledor Vador.
Hallelujah. Ledor Vador nagid gad lecha. Ulenetzach netzachim kedushavtecha nakdish. V'shivcha Eloheinu mipinu le'emush le'olam va'ed. Ki Melech gadol v'kadosh ata. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
If you haven't completed your individual whispered Amidah, please continue to daven. We join together for Kaddish Shalem, page 506.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach yirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayihonu v'yumeichonu v'chayidechu v'Yisrael, v'galav v'zman kari v'yimaru.
Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam al me'amaya yibarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yithala v'yithala shemei dekudasha.
Brichum.
V'yelamin kol birchata v'shirata tishbachata v'nehamata v'amiram v'yalma v'yimaru.
Amen.
Tikabal sulot honu v'ot V'chol Yisrael kadama v'hon divishmaya v'yimaru.
Amen.
Yehi shlam harav amin shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom v'roma v'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Congregation Agudat Achim's in-person and live stream Shabbat morning service. Yasher Koach to Kaylin for leading us in Musaf, and to everybody who participated in our service today, to Orit for leading us in Shacharit, to Howie for reading Torah, to Art for reading the Haftarah. And we wish a happy birthday to the following folks who are celebrating their birthday this week: Samuel Lefkowitz, Paul Zinneman, Malcolm Abrams, Olga Borodolina, Zipporah Harris, Julia Eddy, Linnell Engelmeyer, Laura Goldberg, Alan Kudan, Rachel Schmidt, Adrian Klein, Alexandra Schmidt, Lisa Sternlicht, Harvey Middleton, and Stephanie Weiss. Mazel tov. And we wish a mazel tov to Robert and Anna Schliefstein, to Ron and Jill Busanel, to Abraham and Lynn Finkel, and to Louis and Sherry Gold on the occasions of their anniversaries, which are also this coming week. A mazel tov to everybody who's celebrating a birthday or an anniversary this week. And if you have another special occasion that you'd like to celebrate with us, please do let us know so that we can celebrate with you. We continue now with Aleinu, page 510. We rise. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shunat HaShamayim v'yosei ha'aretz Umo shavikaro b'shamayim imal Ushchinatu zo begavhei meromim Hu Eloheinu einod Emen malkeinu efes ulato Kakatu b'toratom Mi'adatayom V'hashivota elevavecha Ki Adonai hu Elohim Hashamayim imam Me'al haaretz Mitachat
Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch li'olam va'ed
V'nemar v'haya Adonai Lemelech ha'kol haaretz Vayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad Hu Shemo echad. Congregation mourns with sorrow the passing of Terry Lowenthal, the mother of Susan Axelrod. There will be a memorial service this coming Sunday, tomorrow, and there will be Shiva Minyan at Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday evenings at the Temple Sinai of Saratoga Zoom link. We've decided that there will not be minyan on those nights at our Zoom link, but we are inviting our congregants to go to Shiva at 7 p.m. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday evening. We wish condolences to Susan and to her whole family on the passing of her mother. We also honor the memory of the following individuals who have gone to their eternal rest: Morris Weisberg, William Altschuler, Joseph Greenberg, Dov Ber Ben Liba Yuda Borodulin, Bernard Yablon, Sally Goldstein, Ida Layton, Deborah Roos, Stephen Wasser, Mary Frisch, and Verna Hopper. In solemn testimony to the unbroken chain of faith which links one generation of the house of Israel to the next, those who mourn and those who are observing yahrzeit now rise to magnify and sanctify God's name with the words of Kaddish Avelim, Mourner's Kaddish. page 512. It gadal v'it kadash shemei rabbah be'alma divra kirutei li'amlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom mimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Susan's going to offer some announcements on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbos.
So, probably the most important thing, you are not having a get-together, right? So, if you were planning to go to the rabbi and Rachel's house this afternoon, don't, because it's supposed to rain. So that has been postponed to next week. All right. There are many opportunities for community service coming up that for the giving back to our congregation, that we are looking for people to deliver high holiday gift bags, and you can contact Ricky Shapiro. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday, USY Kadima and the entire congregation are invited to help out at the Regional Food Bank Farm in Voorheesville. That is from 10 to 1. You can come for part of it. You can come for all of it. Let me or Stephen Schechter know, our emails are in the announcements, just so that we have a rough head count. And then, after that, just USY and Kadima, weather permitting, is going to go swimming and have lunch at Thompson's Lake. So that'll be from about 1 to 4. Please let me know if you are planning to come, because I'm going to bring dessert. We will also be doing a high holiday food drive for Sikkim. That will start September 1 all the way through Carrot Festival, and there are specific items that they would like that are in the bulletin. And our adult education classes continue, including our Hebrew class, Rabbi's Parshat HaShavua class, and then if you look in the announcements, there are a number of other online programs, many of them helping us get into the mood for the high holidays. And on that subject, Slichot will be not this Saturday night, but a week from this Saturday night, and there is more information in the bulletin about that as well. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Yashikah. I was going to add Slichot because it isn't in this little paper thing, but Susan already said everything I was going to say. Do come for Slichot next Saturday night. There will be ways to attend virtually, but it will also be in person, and it is the all of the conservative synagogues in the area are coming together, so it should be very nice. We conclude our service with Adon Olam, page 514.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'it Nasa V'Chefso Kol Hazar Melech Shemo Nikra V'Yacharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Over Ve'hu Yiyeh Shilo lehachbira, veli reshit, veli tachlit, velo ha'oz, v'ha'misra, v'hu eli, v'chayali, v'tzor
Ati, Adonai li, Eloira, Adon Olam,
Asher Malach, B'Terem Kol Yetzirah, V'Nasa, V'Efsakol, Azai Melech Shelo Nikra.
Shabbat Shalom.